I do not intend to lose the form, but it really took me a very long time to crack the code to not lose the form. In an earlier video a while back, I quoted Michael Brecker from an interview.
This is our worst recording. This is it. You're about to hear it.
This was a workshop he did in The Hague 20 years ago when I was at the conservatory there. There was a round of questions from the audience. One of the questions was, how do you keep the form in a tune when you're improvising? Michael Brecker answered, I don't. In every performance I lose the form multiple times. Michael Brecker also said that this was a part of the performance. To go places which you have not heard or seen yet. To challenge yourself to go further. To trust your fellow musicians to be there for you. Rely on your fellow musicians to show you where you are when you're lost. And learn to listen to what happens around yourself. I am not the one to disagree with the great Michael Brecker. And I do agree with all the things he mentioned in the workshop. So what did Michael Brecker say? He does not keep the form.
Say what?
I think this is true for many professional musicians. At a certain point in your travel through music, you get to a point of or level of playing where you do not use your energy on keeping the form. You listen to the music, you play the music, and you do not think about the form. In every performance, I lose the form multiple times. What Michael Brecker says is also crazy, right? Losing the form every performance, more times even. Well, Michael Brecker performed on such a high level that he could afford himself to engulf himself completely in the music and just go with that musical flow. Having super great musicians around him that also just went with the flow of the music. One advice, what I hear when Michael Brecker says this, be in the music and follow the music. Listen to what's happening. Have big ears. And I think exactly this is what it comes down to in this video. Start training to be in the music, start training to listen to what's happening, start learning to count on your instrument. How do you prepare to not lose the form when you're improvising? When you start this journey, I would start by training two aspects. First, your feeling of the shorter period, the time feel, 1 bar, 2 bars, 4 bars. Second, learn to hear the chord progression of a tune. How can you tell the different parts of a tune from each other? Most would say first things first, but actually I want to start with the second thing. Learn to listen to the tune. Learn to find out how the chord sounds. Let's start with a rather simple example, a blues in G for the tenor sax. I've taken out most of the extra chords in the blues, so we're working with a pretty simple example of a blues here. As a saxophone player, we cannot play the chords as in the chords of a tune, but we play actually the arpeggio. This is also where we need to start when we're learning the sound of a tune. I just played up and down the arpeggios, but what you need to start with is the roots of every chord. Where is the root? How do you hear the root? Start by playing this without any timing. The idea behind playing only the roots is listening to where the roots are moving. This you can hear in the bass later on when you listen to music. You can hear these roots move, and that's where you hold on. Start to listen where the chords are moving and how they move. For example, how you from the first bar to the second bar in the blues jump a fourth up. The second step in this process is to add the timing. The timing is very, very important when improvising in jazz music. And a side note, it does not matter what tune you are playing, you can use this method on any chord progression in the whole book, in whatever book you need. When you're playing this simple, your focus must still be listening to what you're playing and try to count the bars while you're playing. A side remark again, every time you start a new exercise, it's okay to just, feel it in your fingers, try to play the exercise without any timing. Don't start immediately with the metronome. Just run through the notes in a kind of inner timing. Then you can always add the timing. Next exercise or next training would be play 3 beats in the bar, breathe 1 beat. That gives you that time of 4, 3 plus 1. If you need to, you can count the 4th beat where you're breathing. You can really into the 4/4 bar this way. And remember to keep it tight. Don't play a 5/4 bar like this. 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then breathe, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So the breathing is a part of the counting. Next step is playing with the metronome in a slow tempo. Playing only to the metronome and not to a backing track makes the playing much more focused. You don't need to listen to anything extra except the timing. Compare the counting, the timing to your own sound and where you're putting the sound down, where you're putting your notes down. Do this a couple of times in different tempos. Here I'm playing in tempo 100. The next couple of steps would be adding more of the form feel, so more 2 bars, 4 bars to the feel. Feeling a 1 bar period. To feel a 1 bar period you need to play more than long notes. The longer notes are more difficult to define in the timing actually. If you have a rhythmic pattern you can put that onto the beats. What I mentioned earlier is I really like to add the time feel to my instrument, so I'm actually counting on the instrument and not counting 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm counting with what I'm playing. Let's loop these first 2 bars of the blues. For example, play 4 times G in the first bar and then play the C in the second bar. So only roots, 4 times G, then C in the second bar. You can easily start without the metronome. But when you play with the metronome, your little friend in timing, you immediately hear if you're off or if you're falling next or behind or in front. So that's very good training. While you're playing, you can refer to the counting in your head. For example, in the second bar, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3. I keep this very simple because you're actually adding 2 different skills together. So in the normal everyday you can count to 4, you can walk, you have a kind of timing feel, and then you add this super weird instrument, the saxophone, on top of this and have to play in time. Adding the metronome, you actually become your little own metronome. So get used to this being the metronome. Now add more rhythm to the first bar. Here I've added 2 8 notes on the third beat. Feel free to add more or less notes. Keep that good timing. Most important thing here is of course breathing, blowing in the saxophone, but keep the timing going in your head. Keep 1, 2, 3, 4 going. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Doesn't matter what rhythm you're playing. If you lose it, you can just start again, no problem. By doing this exercise, well, we actually talked about 1 bar, but you actually already trained the 2 bar feel. Now we're going to a 4 bar feel. So moving on to the 4 bar feel period. I do exactly the same steps, but going into a 4 bar feel. Start by adding 2 2 bar figures together. Here it's very important to hear the rests in every second bar. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. This gives you a reference to where you can use your normal counting. So actually when you have a rest, you can count out loud for yourself. 2, 3, 4. Still, I keep the rests in between so I can count. 1, 2, 4. When you feel free enough in this, take this through the whole form. Dividing the form into small periods of 2 bars. Keep going on the 2 bar feel, but adding these together, getting a 4 bar feel. Adding more rhythm and playing with less rests for counting. Still make a stop if you lose the count. Take the full form steps, the 2 bar period feel and the 4 bar period feel, take it through the whole form a couple of times. See if you can keep the focus on the form and not add extra rhythm, extra notes. Just go with the flow Adding this simple note. Assuming you're okay with your chords, you can add the chords to the rhythm. I would probably just run through the chords one or twice before I do this, so just loosely up and down the 7th chords. Make sure you know the chord notes by heart. And I just added a little, check this video out, because if you want to know your chord progressions, check these patterns out. You can really learn a lot by playing these patterns on the blues. So add all the previous steps into the chord notes. So adding the easy rhythms, the more difficult rhythms, the 2-bar feel, the 4-bar feel. Remember, in this part, don't play everything full. Remember to have these rests where you can count out loud in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes you just need a bar rest to, oh, where am I? What am I doing? How am I counting? When you're playing this, you don't need to play all 4 chord notes. You can play a rhythm on 1 chord note. Make it singable. Don't try to play it difficult. Music is not difficult. Mostly it's like, oh, I can understand this. Feel 2 bars by adding more rhythm in the 2nd bar. Double up to the 4 bars and go on. Use the metronome to keep the time. Then start playing on the full form with the metronome as a reference. Then you're ready to add a play along. And still, with the play along, you don't want to leave it all to the play along. You still want to have your focus, your control in counting and knowing where you are in the form. The basic idea is to get this on your backbone and really intensely know, hey, I know what I'm doing every moment of my playing. That's why we keep it this simple. Remember, you can do this on any chord progressions, any grooves, also modal stuff. If you have a funk groove, you can take 2 bars, just take them out and do this exercise. It's all about listening to what you're playing. Listen to the target notes, the chord notes you want to play, and getting this into the timing and getting this into the feel you're playing in. That's the most important thing you're doing here. So listening to yourself, understanding the form, putting this into a concept that you can understand. So how do you go about practicing your form feel? And what's your favorite tunes to actually practice form feel at the moment? Let me know in the comments below. Do you have any questions? Put it in the comments so I can help you out with this. I have a lot of suggestions for you how you can go further with this. And of course, your subscribes, shares, likes, everything is very, very welcome. So add a big fat like, subscribe, and I'll be very happy and you'll support me a lot. Play music and have fun.